if we now turn to another perspective, as you know, you're coming from the US as well, and in the US and the UK, it's much more harder for Chinese companies to invest into tech. With that context, do you see there's more Chinese greenfield investment coming into these countries, and do you see government supporting that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of opportunity, outside of sort of sensitive, so to speak, industries, and these are, I think mainly tech these days. I mean, I think travel restrictions will need to ease because it's really hard to actually sort of own and manage a company from afar if you can't actually, have back and forth between the managers. But so I do, I see some potential as long as it's beyond sort of, sort of not necessarily in, sensitive industries. And I do think though, greenfield. So I'm hearing that as like, actually from the grounds up starting a company. I mean, I think, acquisitions is something that is, a sort of an easier way. I mean, there are potentially more scrutiny from the governments, but that, you get an operation that is already sort of up and running. Yeah, that's.
But in terms of setting up their own R&D centers,
right?
Yeah. Do you think that maybe something different?
I think that is a good idea because, many Chinese companies that I've observed when they go overseas, I mean, a lot of times they're staffed by, a lot of Chinese. They bring over actually staff, sort of over with them. And I think that, ways of really engaging with the local populace, engaging with the government, is by trying to sort of develop and foster human capital, which is what, you would do in an R&D center. And, in the UK, maybe, I mean, of course, maybe bring over some sort of scientists and researchers from China, but also, hire many of the great science graduates and technology graduates we have here in the UK. And I think this is a way, both the company learns is through these informal means, gets to learn more about sort of the culture and environment. They also, can get a better relation with the governments as well, because actually those kind of investments, go over very well. I know this was something when Microsoft, in I guess in the 1980s or 90s possibly, was really trying to enter China, actually being very active in, R&D centers and supporting, research of the Chinese population was something that really went over well. And I think even, I don't know if it was Jiang Zemin or Hu Jintao, one of them even visited Bill Gates's home because of the depth of the, relationship that Microsoft had built in China, which is partially through these R&D centers. So I think that as Chinese companies think about going global, that's really a way to do it.
That's encouraging to see that. I know that there's an automotive company called Chang'an Automotive.
Of course, yeah.
They have set up R&D center in Nottingham years ago. I was expecting to see more Chinese companies set up R&D center, and it has not happened yet. So perhaps this would change in the coming years. We will see. Yeah,
I think, the Chinese, I mean, one, I think around in this area, very positive aspect of, in some ways, the Chinese system is that, I mean, the government can encourage, companies to do this. Like, for instance, the Belt and Road, they encourage companies to go global. I think, the government is really focused on sort of soft, at least in the past, has focused on soft power issues globally and reputation issues globally. And this is an important way to actually embed yourself within different countries. And so I do think it's a smart strategy for companies in themselves, but then also for China, the country overall.